I'm Haley, a new mom in her 30s after a long fertility journey, figuring out motherhood one snack break at a time.
And I'm Susanne, navigating fertility after loss in my 40s while raising a teenager and still hoping for one more.
Welcome to Two Truths and a Hormone, the podcast where age gap meets egg counts
And real talk meets real emotion.
We're diving into infertility, womanhood, and everything the brochures forgot to mention. The truth is, it's messy.
The other truth, you're not alone.
And the hormone, well, she's along for the ride. Welcome to the very first episode of Two Truths and a Hormone. I am your co-host, Haley.
And I'm Susanne, your other co-host, and we are so excited to be starting this podcast with y'all and seeing where it takes us.
Yeah. Well, Susanne, I figured that we would probably just introduce ourselves, talk about us a little bit, and kind of the reason for the podcast and what this is all going to be about. So if you want to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Sure. Like I said, I'm Susanne. I just turned the big 42, and if you listen to ChatGPT, I am supposed to be in menopause, which is not the case. I am married to Scott, my amazing husband, who has been such a support through all of our fertility journey. I do have a 14-year-old daughter, Bella, from a previous marriage. And Scott and I are just hoping to be able to grow our family and have a baby. I have gone through 2 miscarriages and a chemical pregnancy in the past year. And so that kind of is what led me to wanting to do this podcast with you, Haley. I know your story is similar, but yet different. So I think you getting to introduce yourself will kind of shine light on that as well. And just be there for people as we are there for each other too throughout all this.
And I think over the course of our episodes, we'll both dive more into each of our fertility journeys and kind of more experiences about that. But yeah, I'm Haley. I just turned 30.
You baby.
30 in my 30s, I know. I've been married to my husband, Jacob, for a little more than 6.5 years. And we have an 8-month-old Loden. My fertility journey was a little over 3 years. I live in Oklahoma. I work for a company as an accounts payable supervisor, currently going to school to be certified as a nutritional therapy practitioner. And I'm just super excited. Haven't really talked about my fertility journey much, so I'm super excited to do that. How are you feeling about the podcast? And
I'm super excited. I honestly don't think anyone will listen to it, which I'm A-okay with. I'm excited. I do feel pretty vulnerable, but I feel like I'm kind of an open book with everything I've been through. Like, that's a lot of the feedback I've gotten from people that I've talked to is, you know, they're so impressed how much I share and how strong I am. And, you know, going through all this, there were so many people that had similar stories or had been through similar experiences that I had no idea. I think it's hard for women in general to kind of share. There's a taboo to it as well. And so for me, I'm like, it hurts to share, but if it can make someone else stronger and not feel alone, because it doesn't matter how amazing your spouse is, how amazing your support group is, how amazing your friends are. It is one of the loneliest journeys I've been through. And so I'm hoping that, you know, if someone's in the midst of it or having a moment of loneliness, they can hear us and feel not as alone. I also selfishly wanted to do it as a way for you and I to hang out because I live in Texas. I neglected to say that in my introduction. So I work for a school district in Texas, and we kind of have a long distance friendship going on here. And when I brought it up to you, I was missing hanging out with you. We hadn't seen each other. I guess the longest we've gone without seeing each other, about a year. And I was like, you know what? I talk about this all the time. I know you've mentioned wanting to share more than you have, and I'm like, this would be a great way to do it. And if people hear it and are moved by it, and I don't know, we become super famous web stars, maybe? Not really.
Even if just one person hears it and it helps them a little bit like that, our goal has been accomplished. Like that's
Oh
the
yeah.
goal.
Well, I
All
mean,
we want is somebody.
even like my therapist has her
Yeah.
own, fertility journey, and so I was sharing that we were going to do this, and she's like, "I'm on it. I'm going to listen." So I think there's so much out there that we can share. And I think there will be definite tears and then definite laughs. I think that's kind of why for this first episode, we both really just wanted to introduce ourselves, and we'll get into the deep, heavy part
Yeah.
in the next couple of episodes. But yeah, I mean, we have an email address that'll be part of, our Facebook page and our Instagram page. So if anyone does listen and they have questions or stories they want to share, I mean, that would be a great way to get information out there. So what are you what are you excited about? How are you feeling about this? Because I know it's like we text and we're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a pretty introverted person. Suzanne, you're like really extroverted. Like you're just
I am. I think that's how
you talk to anybody.
I think that's how I married
Yeah.
my husband, married
Yes.
Scott, because I mean, he could be fine sitting for 24 to 48
Yes.
hours without
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. So I'm nervous just because I mean I don't necessarily always enjoy speaking, but and it is a very personal journey. And like I said, I haven't really shared much of it, so I am nervous and like I think there's some controversy over some things that I've personally gone through in my fertility journey, so I'm also a little nervous about sharing those. But I'm also excited because since I haven't spoken about it, like I think it needs to get out. I mean, other than just what we've casually have spoken about, and then of course talking to my husband. But I haven't really like actually like replayed it in my head, and I think there's probably things that I probably still struggle with, and I'm hoping that as talking about it maybe can work some of those things out.
It's like free therapy, right?
It is basically.
And
Yeah, so you mentioned
I was talking to my in-laws about doing this and telling them about it. And as I was talking to them in my head, I was like, oh, they may listen. I may need to be real careful with what I say and how much
it's
information
gonna be
I
like
share.
because I'm sure like I want to get into like some deep topics. And,
Hey, you
like,
know what? Nothing
things
is
that we
off
will talk
topic.
about. So
Yeah.
we'll just have to put like a little disclaimer in the beginning, like mom and dad,
Well, I think about like these movie
mother-in-law,
stars when they
dad-in-law.
like film
Don't
shows
listen.
or things like that. I'm like, they have to warn their parents and their grandparents before they go see a show. So, we'll
Yeah.
just warn our parents and
Yeah.
grandparents.
Yes.
Be like,
Just
you may not want to
please do
listen
not
to this episode. You may need to fast forward. Here's the
Yeah.
minute to minute you want to skip it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that we kind of have a long distance friendship. So people may be wondering, well, how the heck are y'all friends?
Yeah.
So I met my husband. He's from Oklahoma, and he was college roommates with a guy who is from my hometown. And then I had a friend in high school who was married to a different guy who was friends with that guy. It's kind of a confusing way to put it. So we all went on a group trip to Windstar, the casino, and that's where my husband and I met, and we kind of pretty much we honestly we didn't even speak to each other like one word that entire trip, except my friend told me that he had told her that he thought I was attractive.
Mhm.
And like the very last day at breakfast, I sat across from him and I was like, I'm gonna ask him a question. So I was like, so Jake, what do you do? And he kind of got flustered because we hadn't talked all weekend, and it was like mid-bite.
Perfect timing.
We didn't talk at all the rest of that day when he left, and then started messaging each other, but pretty much have been inseparable ever since. And that friend or that college roommate that he had was also a friend, and that friend is Suzanne's husband.
Yes. I don't have nearly as exciting of a story. So I actually met Scott working together. We both worked for a school district, and he loves to point this out. He has pointed it out a couple times and laughed, and it's actually very, very embarrassing. The first time I ever met him, I was in a room having lunch with some coworkers. He was in there, and he was kind of complaining about trying to find someone to date and how hard it was to meet people and date. And I was married, was not interested, not looking, not anything like that. And I offhandedly was like, hey, I mean, you seem like a cool guy. If I was single, I would totally date you because you're a nice guy, like trying to lift his spirits more than anything. And so he loves to point out that I did say that, and that is true. But about, I guess we're almost at 4 years now, I went through a divorce, and I remember just kind of not knowing if I wanted to date, not knowing if I wanted to have a partner again. I wasn't coming off of, the healthiest marriage, and so I don't know what got into me, but I was like, I need just a guy to hang out with, just so I can figure out, do I even want to hang out with a guy? Do I want to, get to know a guy any further? And the only guy I knew really was Scott. And so I messaged him, and we kind of talked back and forth. Couldn't really tell if he was flirting or not. He's super introverted. There were a couple of times that, I was like, oh my gosh, did he ghost me? Because, I wouldn't hear from him forever. And then we kind of started hanging out in person. I guess talking, for lack of a better word. I don't even know. Just spending time together, and started dating. And then, yeah, that's how you and I actually met. Was we kind of officially started dating in December. And he wanted to take me up to Odessa, his hometown, to meet his friends. I guess everyone was in town for one of his high school friends' birthday, the holidays. And so you and I met there. And I just...
When was that?
It was December, was it 2021?
No way.
Yeah.
It's been that long?
Yes.
That is crazy.
I know.
Wow,
and
really?
I remember the first time I met you, it was so awful because I had met you, and we kind of talked, but I had gone in the other room, and I walked back in, and it was you and two other ladies, women, girlfriends, wives, and you were kind of starting to share a little bit about, I think you were starting maybe IUI exploration type things, and it
had been about a year into the fertility journey.
Okay.
Point, so.
And I know that one of the other ladies had struggled to conceive her daughter and was sharing her experience with that, and then kind of turned and looked at me, and they're like, oh, so Susanne, how, did you have trouble getting pregnant with your daughter? And I felt so much guilt, for lack of a better word, because I was like, no. She kind of was a surprise.
I didn't even think anything about it.
I felt so bad in my head. Like, I even remember being like, okay, I've got it, but I had really bad morning day. Like, how can I make this not be like, oh, I loved being pregnant, I got pregnant, so easy, and all the things. For this, this girl I had just met, and you could tell it was a hard conversation to have. And I think, after that, we kind of hit it off. I know we did a lot of, both of our husbands are gamers. I guess I can say I play games very awfully. Yeah. It's not.
I mean, I grew up playing games, so.
I mean, I did too, but I'm like a Super Mario brother.
Yeah. No.
Super Nintendo girl.
Yeah, but we started playing Fortnite.
I know.
We were, playing
almost
Fortnite
every night.
Every single night for months.
It was
literally every single day. It was a lot.
Well, and I do attribute kind of Scott and I making it, or at least exploring kind of what we wanted out of our relationship, because I know when he and I first were kind of hanging out, like one of the first questions he asked was, how do you feel about having kids? I want to have kids when I get married. And it kind of took me off guard because I had convinced myself I was okay with one child, and there were reasons, but I had my one daughter.
Also, like, you had just gone through a divorce. So
well, that too.
You even thought that was even going to be a possibility.
Not at all. And, growing up, especially growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was, you've got to have kids by your 20s, early 30s. you're not going to get pregnant, you're going to have kids with special need, like all
Yeah.
the trauma dumping and kind of fear mongering, for lack of a better word. And so I kind of answered along those lines, like, I haven't really thought about it. I don't know if I can have more kids. You know, it's not something I'm shutting down. And I think that scared him at first. And I remember it was shortly after that he went to go visit you and your husband. I was actually on my divorce trip in Vegas with my friend, and he told me later that y'all had a conversation, and you were kind of not blunt, but like, yo, you could marry someone my age and have.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember we went to go eat somewhere. I don't remember where we were eating, but I remember having that conversation and him talking about it, saying that, well, she I think at that time I think you kind of just said that I don't know if I can have kids. I think is what you had said. And I remember asking him, I was like, well, is that a deal breaker for you? I was like, do you want kids? And he was like, yeah, I want kids. And I was like, okay, well, just because of her age does not necessarily mean that she can or cannot have children. I was like, I think the bigger question right now is, does she want children? Because I don't think he knew that yet. But yeah, I was like, it happens to anybody.
Yeah.
You can be married, you can get married at 18, and you can not have kids at 18. Like, it doesn't discriminate.
No, it
can
doesn't.
happen to anybody. So
yeah, and it doesn't matter, you know, what a great person you are, how healthy you are, how healthy you aren't. Yeah, it can happen to anybody. I mean, I was very lucky with my daughter. She wasn't an oops by any means, but it was, I had stopped taking birth control because I knew that we were going to start trying for a baby. But in my head, I was like, well, we need to wait and try on this certain month. So, you know, my delivery lines up with summer break, all the things. And we got pregnant earlier than we planned. It was, one time thing, and, she's a blessing, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And then, so I kind of was naive and like, oh, okay, well then I think we'll be good. I don't know, but I think so. But yeah, it doesn't discriminate. And there are so many people that, I would have never guessed that they don't have children, or they only have one. And it's because of either fertility or secondary infertility or miscarriages or whatever it is. So yeah,
I think that's what's unique, is that, like, it's not just, if you were able to have children before, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to have another.
Yeah.
That's like another thing that you just don't think about that.
You don't. And it's interesting, and it's something that I've learned a lot kind of going through this, is how much is still so unknown, especially for women, right? And it's like, there's so much we do on a chromosomal and hormonal level of creating a baby, and then it's like, but for whatever reason you can't have a baby.
Yeah, the doctors aren't always the most helpful with that.
No, they are not. They are not. Yeah. But yeah, so that's how we met. And I mean, we just kind of, from then on, we clicked. We would go up, y'all would come down. I think this is the first year that we haven't seen each other. We would usually see each other around the 4th of July and Christmas. Having a baby definitely changes travel plans.
A little more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. In a good way, of course.
Yes.
And then we both ended up pregnant at the same time. When you were pregnant with your son. So that was, that was...
We'll get into that more with you.
Yes, we will.
Yeah,
we will.
Next week, Susanne will talk about her fertility.
Ooh, do I get to go first? Okay.
You did get to go first, and then...
Spoken like a true introvert, Haley. Spoken like a true introvert.
Yeah, and then the one after that will be my fertility journey. So I'm still going to have to do it. I can't hide.
I think it's so funny, because we do have to back up a little bit in regards to how you know Scott. Because
you love to do this.
There are 2 introverts whose friends tried to set them up probably multiple times, and I just think it's hilarious.
So we went on this, like I mentioned, we all went on a group trip, is how I met my husband, but what I didn't say was that there had been a couple other group trips before that where our friends tried to set Scott and me up together.
I just try to imagine that. I'm like, y'all just
Yeah.
sat there and neither one said
Yeah.
anything
Well,
whatsoever.
I mean, I knew of Scott because, like I said, we all went to the same high school, so like I knew of him. Really, the only thing I knew about him was that he sounds like Josh Groban when he sings.
He does.
Um,
He does. He denies it, but he
yeah,
does.
no, he does absolutely. And yeah, definitely two introverts doesn't really work too well.
Not
It
so much.
was awkward, and I remember one time being left like at a bar. Well, I don't know if I could say
You're fine.
that. At a bar, our two friends went away and like left us to talk to each other, and it was probably the most awkward situation ever because there were probably like two words. It was just
It
yeah,
just makes me laugh
it was
because
never gonna
I
happen.
think
I
of
know.
Jake and I think of me and I'm like, okay, I get it, right? Like you needed someone like
Yeah.
Jake, Scott needed
Yes.
someone like me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And it was funny because your mother-in-law, like when it was when y'all were first dating,
hmm
there was like what did she say? She like made a comment about, or she made like a face, and you were like, "Oh, I know that
Oh yeah, so
we
she
kind
had
of sort of
mentioned it, but I
understand
don't
that."
think she
Yeah.
knew I knew. And then she's like, "Oh, like foot in
Yeah.
mouth, ice cream," because she knew we were friends. I'm like, "Oh no, I know all about
No,
that."
I already
But you
know
could
about it.
see
Yeah.
that like terror in her eyes of
Yeah.
like, "Oh
Can
my
you
gosh."
imagine if we didn't tell you?
Then,
Like,
well, then I would be
oh,
like, "Okay, were
yeah,
there
it
feelings
would
there?
be
Like,
weird.
what
Yeah,
happened?"
yeah, that would have been really
Yeah,
interesting.
but
But
yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was the first look of like just sheer terror in her eyes. Like, oh,
yeah,
I said something I'm not supposed to. I'm like, no, you're good, you're good.
yeah.
But
So
yeah, I love bringing it up because I think it's funny. But it
yeah. Oh,
also
and then Scott was the best man in mine and Jake's wedding, and then Jake was the best man in y'all's
yes,
wedding,
and
and
you
it
were a
was
bridesmaid. Like yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, and I think
You know,
one
it
thing we
happens.
have to point out because I realized because you just turned 30, I turned 42. Scott is 32 now, 33, 32.
32. He'll be
Okay,
33. Yeah,
I'm
because
like,
he's
let
the
me
same
do the
age
math.
as Jake. Jake is
Yes.
32.
Yes, he is 32. That's right. I should know my husband's age. But yes, I am older than my husband, which when we first started dating, he and all his friends absolutely loved. Well, all my friends too. They're my friends too now, but
He's
absolutely
still
loved.
love.
Jake was the worst. Jake definitely was the worst of, where
That's
were
just
you,
Jake.
Suzanne? I'm like, shut up. We don't need to talk about that. We don't need to talk about that at all.
All the
I have
old
now
truth.
learned most of the quotes that all of y'all do are from SpongeBob. That took me a while.
Yes, yes, yes.
So,
Speaking of the old jokes, as you were saying, I should know my husband's age. I had one on the tip of my
oh
tongue,
no.
and I was like, "Oh, it's the old age that you can't remember."
Stop
So,
it.
man, it just happens.
This happens. Alzheimer's is already setting in. What can I
Yeah,
say?
but I mean, that kind of leads into kind of like where did two truths in a hormone come from?
Which I love.
So,
Okay, I do have to
yeah.
say before we get to that, Scott's
Mhm.
vote was, what was it? Hormone, hot flashes and hormone crashes. And
Yeah,
I had to,
and he loved that.
yeah, I'm like, I'm
Had
not there
freaking
yet. Thank you. But then you came up with this one, which was even better. And I think is
yeah.
amazing.
And so I just we kind of wanted to break it down a little bit. But I think some of it, kind of what we're bringing to this podcast is, like you mentioned, we both have experienced different fertility journeys. So there's like, it's similar, but there's a lot of differences
Mhm.
in it. But I think what makes it even more unique is that I'm 30 and you're 42. So, I
Yeah.
mean, there is a pretty, I mean, not a pretty big age
But
difference, but
there
there is an age
is.
difference there. We've experienced different things just
Mhm.
because of being different ages. So I think that also is providing a different perspective to this, which I think is really cool because I think we're going to be able, if people do listen, there's going to be kind of like a wider range of kind of what we can kind of speak to and everything like that. So, but two truths and a hormone, of course, it's like the play on words with two truths and a lie if you've ever played that game. Um, and it's also a nod to the ages. Um, and then just kind of
I
look at
think
the notes.
the
Yeah.
two truths, like you said, it we each have our own truths, and everyone has their own truth. And then your hormone that
Yeah.
she's kind of just thrown in there, right? And I think it's definitely a good play on words with that game Two Truths and a Lie because every month I think pretty much almost every woman can attest to the lie that your hormone kind of tells you, whether
Yeah.
it's as you're trying to get pregnant or not. Just, that hormonal shift that you experience, and maybe you're sad, maybe you're angry, maybe you feel all the feels, and
Yes.
sometimes those feelings aren't fact, which is something I am working on extensively in therapy as well. Feeling versus fact. And hormones are just great about feeding you those
Yes.
feelings, which are not always
Yes.
true.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought it would be kind of fun if we went ahead and did a true truth and a lie little game to
Okay.
help our listeners kind of get to know us maybe a little bit more or see how well we know each other.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Two truths and a lie, and you have to pick out which one's the lie.
yes.
Okay. I start almost every one of my messages, whether it's to you or any of my other friends, with TMI, but, and then proceed to share everything. I have never waited until a missed period to take a pregnancy test. And I actually can be introverted because I get really nervous about what people think about me, and my extroverted side comes out once I get to know them.
Okay. I thought I was gonna nail this. The last one threw me. Okay. I know that you do start most of your
I knew you
conversations
would
with
know that.
TMI and then proceed to share everything.
And then you always respond, I think we're past TMI.
Yeah. You said you have never
Waited till a missed period to take a
waited to
pregnancy
a
test.
missed period. I think that's the lie.
That's true. You're right. You're correct. Yeah, you're correct. That's the lie.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay. I was like, what?
Yeah, no. So I thought I was going to get you with that because on
Yes,
this
you almost
journey,
did.
I have not waited.
Yes.
But with my daughter, because we weren't really
Okay,
trying, it was the day of my missed period. I did wait.
That makes
So,
sense.
dang, I thought I was going to trick you. And yes, as much as I appear extroverted, and I think for the most part I am, in big crowds or new people or around people who I think don't like me or I know don't like me, I can be a lot more quiet, a lot more introverted, and then as I get comfortable and get to know each other, get to know people,
That makes sense.
I turn into this.
That makes sense.
Okay, let's see if you can
Alright.
trick me.
None of mine are fertility related. So,
Okay, well, that's all I could think of.
all right. Let's see. I have had a pet bunny. Okay, that's the first one. I have a tattoo on my ankle, and I can say the ABCs backwards.
Okay, I think you can say the ABCs backwards, but you had a pet bunny. I know you have the tattoo on your arm. Do you have one on your ankle? I'm trying to think. I thought I've seen your ankles. Not that I stare at your ankles, but I'm going to say that one's a lie, that you have a tattoo on your ankle.
That is correct. I do not have a pet on my ankle. I can say the ABCs backwards, and I have had a pet rabbit before, and it was evil.
Oh no. So
Yes.
no more pet bunnies.
No other pet bunnies. We're gonna stick with dogs, even
There you
though
go.
I now have a crazy dog. But
Oh, so do I. I'm surprised she hasn't come in here yet. I have to leave the door open because we get no air circulation.
she's living right next to me.
I think just to kind of close up and let everyone know what to expect, our plan is to record every Monday, and then my amazing husband, who can edit videos and sound and all that, will edit for us to post the next Monday, but we'll post little shorts and snippets, and we have YouTube and then Spotify, right? And then we have our Facebook page and our Instagram page that Haley so amazingly created, that's titled Two Truths and a Hormone with the word and, right? We weren't able to do.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Just so
spelled out.
everyone knows.
And two spelled out as well, not
Yes.
the number two.
TWO, truths, then the word and, a hormone. So we'll definitely be doing that. And then our email is the same? No.
Yeah, two truths and a hormone at gmail.com, all spelled out.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm really excited to get deep into it. I love how easy this was. It was like
we have some hard topics coming up, but we're also gonna have some fun conversations and getting into some maybe spicy topics,
For
if you
sure.
will.
So I
We'll
think the next
see.
couple episodes will be sharing our journeys, right, with fertility.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we'll kind of lighten it up and do
Yes.
like
Do
a,
something fun.
yeah, like what have you tried? Like the craziest things we've
Yeah.
tried or read
Yeah.
about. And then I
Good
know one of
ideas.
them is kind of a touchy topic. We're going to talk about religion and fertility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think you just kind of got to, right? Because there's so
Yep.
much out there and so many stances. And then, like you said,
Yeah.
spiciness and all
See
the
where it
things where
takes
we
us.
tell our parents and in-laws, hey, how about you don't listen to this
Don't listen.
today?
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
All right. Well, thank you. If anybody is listening, thank you for listening.
yes, email
As
questions,
yes,
comments,
as
anything. We
anything
want to hear
that you would
back.
like us to discuss, make sure you follow us and then leave us a 5-star review.
I'm so
That's what all,
excited. Like
that's what all the podcasters say.
I never thought I'd be like, hey,
I
I'm on
know.
Spotify.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.